네, 그럼 지금부터 2023 김대중
We would like to begin now the afternoon session of the Kim-dae-jung Peace Forum 2023. Nice to meet you all. I am Kim Kyung-mi, who will be the moderator of the afternoon session. Welcome back. So thank you very much once again for coming back to the afternoon session. So we will be having 2 keynote speakers, and then we have 3 sessions ready. The first session is about We have 3 sessions ready. The first session is about the resolution of climate and disease crisis. The second session is about the 4th Industrial Revolution and the future of humanity. The third session will be about the establishment of international cooperation system of science and technology for peace. I ask for your undivided attention now. I would like to invite a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, who will be talking about the global responsibility and global peace and deliver his keynote speech.
The joys and freedom of millions of children started with just one feeling. What if the child slave Sabu was my daughter? Sabu who was about to be sold to his daughter. Sabu whose desperate father lay in a heap at my feet. Perhaps it all started with a spark of compassion, and today become a worldwide movement. I believe that each one of us is born with 2 natural gifts: consciousness and compassion. Both are the core reasons of our being. When we feel the suffering of others as our own suffering, with a strong drive to take action, that is compassion. God is not so eager that He has blessed us with only a little of compassion which we have confined to our families and friends. We need to go beyond that. All that is required is to enlarge our circle of compassion.
A touch of compassion is what makes each of us a problem solver, an innovator who is ready to accept all challenges and solve them. When we work towards making our world a better place, each one of us becomes a compassionate leader. In fact, all world religions and movements were born out of compassion. I stand with 8 billion people because the world is my family. In this age of interconnectedness, are we really connected with each other? Compassion is the greatest form of connectedness and love. There is no curse bigger than being alone. Loneliness is frightening. If you are connected, you are fearless. And we are the safest if we feel like a part of our global family. We are the mothers of the children. I am not a teacher or a preacher of compassion. I have made it a way of life. I truly believe that every solution lies in compassion in action. So, my dear friends, as we globalize markets, resources, and data, I urge you all to globalize compassion. Sangachadvam samvadadvam samvo manansi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanjananam upasate.
हम चलेंगे साथ साथ चले हाथों में हाथ हम चलेंगे साथ साथ एक दिन ओ मन में है विश्वास पूरा है विश्वास हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन
We shall overcome one day.
네, 여러분의 큰 박수와 함께 카일라시 사티아르티님 모시겠습니다. 반갑습니다.
Good afternoon, dear sisters and brothers. As all of us know that any session or any keynote speech after the lunch, such a heavy and delicious lunch, even for me and my wife who are vegetarians, and our friend Mike, who is a gluten-free eater, the lunch was quite heavy. But even then, I think that you will be able to manage. Today, listening to previous speakers in the inaugural session, and the messages, I was thinking that it is not just a forum to talk on global responsibility and global peace. We are celebrating the modernization of Korea. We are celebrating democracy of Korea. We are celebrating resilience and peace. We are celebrating the drive to take big leaps. We are celebrating all these things through the memory, work, and life of President Kim Jung. So when we talk of global responsibility and peace, remembering him, I would like to express my deep gratitude and congratulations to the President, Co-President, Executive Directors, and all the office bearers of the Foundation, Kim Dae-jung Foundation, as well as the organizers of this forum. My wife Sumedha, my colleague Astha, and I traveled little more than 32 hours and reached here last evening. So this morning we were a little lazy. Because of the time difference also, but we got up early. But while listening to all these speeches very carefully and reading and learning more about President Kim, I was feeling energized and motivated. We all know, and that has been spoken this morning, that we live in an era of compounding crisis, competing issues, conflicting priorities, and so on. Let me begin with a mantra that comes from Vedas. The Indians believe that this is a divine message of wisdom and knowledge, came through ancient sages. It's very simple but very powerful. Sangachadhum samvadadhum samvo manansi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanjananam upasate. It means today, now, here, we resolve for few things, 3, 4 things. One is, we resolve to walk together. Let us walk together that no one is left out, no one is left behind. They are all our sisters and brothers. Let us walk together and create a level playing field. Everyone gets her or his opportunity and due, equal opportunity, level playing field. This is one message. And when we say we are walking together, how could it be possible without feeling the deep moral responsibility and accountability to each other? No one is left out. The second message is, let us speak together. Let us talk together in the tongue of unison, love. Let us talk together means we have to give opportunity to everyone. The freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, but also an environment where people are empowered to talk together, where the last person of society has courage to speak truth to power. And when we talk together, it also means that we have to feel connected to each other. We have to feel friendship with each other. A journalist asked me this morning, Korean young people have a lot of enthusiasm and Korea has made a lot of progress. But the students and youth are not so happy. They feel loneliness. A journalist asked this question, why? And I said that when we walk together, we should learn how to talk together, how to be friends, how to build trust. And that trust can be built only when we feel morally responsible to each other. The growth cannot go alone to bring peace if it does not have a sense of responsibility, connectedness, collaboration, cooperation. Otherwise, the material growth may cause many problems in the society, not in society, but also the planet is facing these problems. So the human component is very necessary. How to keep it by way of finding ways and means, of course, to keep creating an environment where people can share their feelings. Sometimes they're love and sometimes they're anger. Sometimes agreement, sometimes disagreement. That will help in moving towards the peace, right from the family, to schools, colleges, communities, nations, and international fora. And the third thing comes as one of the resolves in this mantra is that let us bring our knowledge and minds together. Our thoughts may have differences, but there is always some commonality. Hold that commonality among our thoughts. And that commonality is that we are one. The commonality is that we are not only interconnected globally, but we are interdependent. It's a reality. Our evolution as human beings begin with that. It is not a new story to learn that we are interconnected and interdependent. Since the formation of small tribes and communities, and then villages and cities and towns and nations, this ingredient was there. Evolutionary sociologist and evolutionary socio-psychologist call this element as reciprocal altruism. For millions of years, people started feeling that we have to do something for each other. We have to make sacrifices to build that cooperation. That is the sense of responsibility. I am not an academician. As I said yesterday, I flew from a place where we organized an international youth summit on human fraternity and compassion, which was attended by 700 young people from many parts of the world. And I was so amazed. When the youth, one of the young persons stood on the dais and said that we have a lot of knowledge about the problems. He also said that we have been researching solutions for ages. He questioned that, do you really feel those problems? Do you really feel those solutions inside? And this question was asked when a large number of national and international faith leaders and scholars, practitioners, NGO leaders were sitting and listening. Very simple challenge. Do we really feel? We talk of problems, and there's no dearth of knowledge and words about those problems. As the problems are accelerating, their complexities is increasing and deepening, we create new phrases of those things. But the question is, do we feel for each other? The global responsibility has its geopolitical dimension and solutions. But responsibility may have three phases or three dimensions. One is our feeling for other. We have to feel responsible, that is much more personal element in it. The second is moral or ethical reason to feel responsibility to each other. And the morals and ethics keep on changing. It's not rigid thing. In different societies, different cultures, the morals are different, ethics are different. But responsibility in itself becomes an ethics. So sometimes we feel responsible when we are driven by a certain ethics or morality. And the third is the statutory state. If the laws are there, the constitutions are there, you cannot simply get away of from those responsibilities. You have to be responsible for certain things. If a teacher is being paid, the teacher has to teach in a school. The public money is going in his salary. If the doctor is working, then doctor is supposed to do it. It could be moral, it could be personal, but it should also be a responsibility given by the state or by the employers, whosoever. We have to think of how to build the culture of responsibility and convert it into the culture of peace. And peace is not simply the absence of war or violence. Peace is an equilibrium. As we in India have been talking for centuries or millennials, or writing at least, it's an equilibrium of body, mind, and soul. This is internal. But the external piece is that the equilibrium between individuals and the surroundings, the environment. Equilibrium between you and the earth, and the water, and the mountain, and the air. And your neighbor, your government, your religion or other religions, and so on. It goes up to international level. So with society and planet, individuals, society and planet, that has to be maintained. And that can be maintained only when the justice and equality, or equity at least, will be maintained. If there is no justice, no equity, then very difficult to think of peace in the family, in the society, or globally. I work with slave children across 150 countries for last more than 2.5 decades, 3 decades. When I talk of responsibility, many incidents come to my mind. Once I was traveling to Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire in West Africa, which is the largest single producer of cocoa beans, which is the core ingredient of chocolate. I know that all of you or most of you love chocolate in one way or other and use chocolate to give gifts. Even my old friend is saying, yes, so you give gift of chocolates to your loved ones, sometimes your wife, spouse, girlfriends, boyfriends, on Valentine's Day, birthdays, parties, and so on, the chocolate. But when I was sitting and talking to a group of young children, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, all of them were working in cocoa production, cocoa beans production, in farms, cocoa farms. So I engaged them in some discussion. All of them were having injuries and scars and bruises in their bodies. I asked to a girl, my daughter, how do you like chocolate? She looked back at another girl and a boy. What is chocolate? I thought that there could be some language problem. I tried to explain this is sweet, delicious bar and candies. They were murmuring in each other's ears. They were talking, what is chocolate? None of them has ever seen or tasted chocolate in their life. They were working in cocoa fields to produce chocolate for the people like us. Billions of dollars are earned out of that chocolate. At the cost of their children's freedom, dignity, health, education, future, and dreams. Today we are talking of global responsibility. Whose children are they? I met a young girl in Pakistan, my neighboring country, maybe 8-year-old, 7-year-old. She was working, stitching footballs. I know Korea is football lover. And that girl was stitching footballs, and every time she stitched, something went wrong with the needle, and a blood drop comes out from her fingers. She just suck it and start working. I sat close to her and I asked, my daughter, we will make sure that you are freed from this situation, from this factory, and you are given some opportunity. Tell me what you wanted to become in the future. What is your dream? She started talking to other. Language was not the problem that day, because India and Pakistan share similar language, same language, North India. And she asked, what does dream mean? What is dream? I said, what do you think to become in the future? None of those children ever thought what would be their future. When I insisted, the little angel replied, yes, if possible, one day I wanted to hit the real football, the proper football. That is the only dream that she could have after my insistence, provocation. The problem lies in that, the fundamental problem lies, in my opinion, that the root cause of many of these problems is that we don't really feel connected with each other as one family, as one human, one earth, even as one future. What is happening? One day, I was talking to a friend of mine who just came back from Ukraine last year. And he was showing me a short video. A number of children, school-going children, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old children. They were all crammed into a dark tunnel, the tunnel which was used for underground railway. And the mothers were pushing them and keeping their hands on the mouth of those children that don't cry, because they were listening some noise of patrolling soldiers, the noise of sound of boots. And the mothers themselves could not cry in that darkness. This gentleman was also caught there inside because he was studying in that country, in a university. The problem lies that there is this growing difference between what we speak, what we think, what we feel, what we do, in our words, in our actions. It's growing. I am one of those 17 advocates of United Nations development goals. UN Secretary General appointed 17 advocates for 17 goals. Very exclusive group, and I sit in that. And I have been raising this issue that you will keep on failing your children, the most marginalized people of the earth, because you don't feel the sense of moral responsibility. You don't feel the sense of moral accountability. There is no moral compass to drive you. Because it's very easy to come out with good words. It's very easy to put those words in papers, pledges, constitutions, laws, agendas. I am someone who has scars and injuries in all my body while freeing children from slavery in all those 45 years of my work. And I am saying this very humbly with my experience across the globe. Mahatma Gandhi once said to the first Prime Minister of India that when you are going to make your policies or making any scheme, I will give you a talisman, Gandhi said. And that talisman was that, think of the last person of society whom you ever met. And see that your law, your constitutional provision, your scheme will bring joy and confidence and fearlessness on the face of that child or that person, the last person of society, anywhere in the world. Otherwise, you throw that away. That was the moral compass which the leaders in my country and other countries have just ignored or largely ignored. So, dear friends, I have just two things to conclude. One is that if we have to go towards these two important or necessary things, because responsibility is not a luxury anymore now. Peace should not be a luxury anymore now. These things are the necessities for our survival, for our existence. We cannot live as human beings. We are not machines. Why our brains, our minds are being conditioned as machines? We are human beings. We should feel the suffering of other people as our own suffering with a strong drive to elevate that suffering. That is compassion. And compassion is not a tender emotion. Compassion translates into social transformation. There is no historic transformation ever took place without someone has felt the suffering of other people as his or her own suffering, with a strong drive to take action to end that suffering. That is the root. That is the root of all religions and all revolutions in the world, all social transformations. We have to make sure that in the governance, global governance, how we can inculcate the value of compassion, the feeling of compassion. That will make it more inclusive and democratic. United Nations and all the agencies of United Nations required to be reformed, to be more inclusive and more democratic, and more vibrant, more authentic, more moralistic, more powerful, stronger. But that is possible when we all start feeling. Only $53 billion additional dollars, $53 billion additional dollars can ensure education, healthcare, and protection of every single child in every single low-income country. And that $53 billion is just 9 days or less than 9 days of global military expenditure. World is not so poor. We are poor in our hearts, perhaps in our minds. This is one thing, inclusion of compassion in the global governance, with a sense of responsibility that can bring about peace in the end of the day and maintain peace. We have to make sure that how state as well as corporate world is driven by compassionate leadership. That compassion will help not only that company, but also it will give you a sense of moral responsibility to entire supply chain. American companies, I'm sorry to say, or European companies, they cannot hire a child, they cannot engage a child laborer in their own country, but these companies can go in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and many more parts of the world and can engage young children at the age of 10, 12 in their supply chain, and the finished final product reaches to the consumers in many, many countries. This is duality. This is obscurantism that must go. So we have to learn how to create a culture of moral responsibility in our own surroundings. How we have courage to speak truth to power in our countries and the world and the international organizations and companies. That is needed. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals were rushing for a safer place, including King Lion. And Lion noticed there was a tiny hummingbird flying straight towards the flame. And he was surprised. He shouted, "What are you doing? Committing suicide?" The little bird answered, "No, sir. I am going to extinguish this fire. I was born and grew up here." More surprisingly, he asked, "How come?" Then she replied, "Lord, look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water. A drop of water. I am doing my bit. I was born and grew up in this jungle. I cannot leave it like that." To the surprise of everyone, the little bird kept flying. That is a legend. But I am here to tell you, my dear sisters, brother, my dear young friends, today when you celebrate this great man, you are taking a moral responsibility not to let down that hummingbird inside you. Whenever you feel the suffering of others and wanted to really act, not just speak, not just write, that feeling has to be transformed into action. That is because of that hummingbird. Don't let your inner hummingbird down. You have that hummingbird. You have that hummingbird. You are the ocean of compassion. You can change the world, and I am sure you will make this world a much more sustainable, peaceful, and beautiful place for the generations to come. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The awakening and learning were abundant in his presentation. Compassion and the moral values are the essential, not option for global responsibility. Next, I would like to invite our second keynote speaker. Today we have a lot of students in this room, and that's why this keynote speaker is invited. He is leading the Minerva University, which is setting the direction for the global education. He will be talking about the role of higher education in promoting global peace. The keynote speaker is Mike.
안녕하세요. Good afternoon. Kailash, thank you so much for inspiring us today. That was really wonderful. Well, I'm delighted to be here to discuss our collective desire for a more peaceful world. JUNG, a desire surely as old as humanity itself, and I'm especially honored to share the stage with Kailash Satyarthi, whose advocacy and activism for human rights I very much admire. In a contemporary world that is somehow both entirely interconnected and increasingly divided, the need to develop peacemakers has never been more pronounced. As a university president, I feel especially responsible to fulfill this need. To develop peacemakers is as noble an endeavor for our institutions of higher education as I can imagine. Colleges and universities are where young minds evolve, perspectives are broadened, ambitions are shaped. If these institutions are intentional about their work, they can create in the minds and hearts of young people the building blocks for peace around the globe. Strong ethical foundations, intercultural understanding, radical empathy, and the skills to solve complex problems and make change. They have the power to shape the values, ambitions, and intentions of the next generation of global leaders, thinkers, and citizens. Minerva University, where I am president, was designed with a mission in mind: to develop problem solvers, entrepreneurs, and wise leaders from around the globe, and to weave them together as one community committed to a more peaceful, sustainable, and equitable future for us all. We've created an institution where training global citizens isn't an afterthought, but the foundation of our work. It's at the heart of everything we do. Our students come to us from over 100 nations, accepted based on talent and character rather than economic background and status. They come from nations torn asunder in recent history by the Cold War in Southeast Asia and Latin America. They come from Ukraine and Russia, India and Pakistan, China and Taiwan. They are Israeli and Palestinian. The histories of Seoul and Berlin run through the veins of our community. Violent internal conflicts in Afghanistan, Libya, Central African Republic, Ethiopia, Somalia, Syria, Myanmar are a terrifyingly concrete reality for many of our students and their families. We instill in each of our students the responsibility to not treat these realities as abstractions, a responsibility to see, to hear, and to attempt to understand one another. To achieve these goals, we had to design a unique educational experience and curriculum, and some of what we've done may serve as a helpful model for other organizations who themselves hope to produce the peacemakers of tomorrow. So, what does this look like for us? For Minerva University, global responsibility is developed through a combination of global exposure, intercultural understanding, lessons on civil discourse, and proximity to a global community. Our students travel with a diverse cohort of 200 classmates to live in multiple cities around the world in the span of 4 years. Each of our rotation cities, Berlin, Buenos Aires, Hyderabad, London, San Francisco, Seoul, and Taipei, offers rich opportunities to reflect on the ways in which history, including political, religious, and cultural identities, have shaped our world, and how as individuals and in collaboration with each other, they might shape the future for the sake of us all. This is not tourism or so-called study abroad. Our students would have far too many definitions of the meaning of abroad to make it relevant. Rather, it is an education focused on global citizenship that emphasizes ethical values, social responsibility, and active engagement in addressing today's most complex problems and greatest challenges. Conflict, climate change, poverty, health, social inequality aren't concepts solely for the classroom. They are real problems that our students engage in through local projects. By getting them on the ground and getting them involved, we, in tandem with our local partners, are providing our students with the knowledge and skills to contribute to solutions. We guide them on a journey from exposure to engagement. We know that exposure to cultures other than our own is not enough. Our mission requires intentionality around producing intercultural understanding and empathy. At the start of our students' stay in each country they live in, they attend a seminar to learn about local values, communication styles, workplace culture and customs, and manners. It helps our students ensure that they are mindful and respectful inhabitants of their new home and brings broader awareness of the cultural differences that exist within our own student body. Something as simple as sharing the food and culture of their home countries with the rest of their classmates can make them active participants in their own experiential learning. From teaching samba to making dumplings, these events help students learn more about their friends and peers. And there's a point to all of this. Peace requires that we understand not only each other's sorrow, but each other's joy. We are the food we share, the music, the dance, the well springs of language in our neighborhoods, the stories of our ancestries and childhoods, the landscapes we traverse in awe. We allow students to share themselves fully with their classmates and in turn to open themselves up to others. They build trust, deepen relationships, learn and grow from other experiences, and most importantly, feel connected. Deeply connected, deeply tied to one another, despite their very different backgrounds and circumstances. Rather than eyeing each other warily from across fraught lines of difference, they enter a liminal space of exchange. Whenever I'm in the company of our students, I'm reminded of a sermon that Dr. Martin Luther King gave at Riverside Church in 1967, known as the Beyond Vietnam Sermon. It was here that King, like our friend Kailash Satyarthi, and like Kim Dae-jung, a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, first extended his idea of interconnectedness, the idea that, as he put it, we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, from the sphere of US civil rights to the sphere of global human rights. As Pulitzer Prize winner Viet Thanh Nguyen said, what made King truly radical was his desire to act on an empathy for people not like himself. To act on an empathy for people not like himself. In today's world of proliferating conflict, I find King's concept of interconnectedness to be the most difficult truth. The sacred obligation and the promise of a better tomorrow lie in our daily attempts to live up to this truth. Belonging, connection, understanding do not always come easy and without friction, which is why we've made civil discourse another cornerstone of our university. Students take classes during their first year designed to build habits for interacting effectively. They learn how to negotiate and mediate, how to actively listen to one another, and how to invite those on the outside in. This environment allows students to engage in discussions about sensitive topics, learn to appreciate diverse opinions, and most importantly, to find common ground. This practice cultivates a culture of tolerance and respect for differing beliefs, and those skills are not only valuable in our students' personal relationships, but applicable to international diplomacy and addressing global conflicts. Imagine how these skills might be sharpened in a course about constitutional law with classmates from Iran, Denmark, and Brazil, or in a class on climate change with students from Korea, Ukraine, and South Africa. Learning is enhanced because students are able to share their perspectives on the cultural and economic contexts that underlie our most pressing problems. And our final value, proximity matters. Cultural segregation, which can sometimes seem an expedient solution to conflict in the short term, is corrosive in the long term to peace. Our students live together in close quarters across every conceivable line of difference. And this experience exposes students to the daily lives, customs, traditions, and behaviors of peers from diverse backgrounds. It fosters mutual understanding and appreciation and helps break down stereotypes, misconceptions, and fears. Residence life exists in the context of the overall values and mission of the university, and it is a learning environment every bit as vital as the classroom. There is a real power to living, working, and studying with students from other cultures over 4 years. Students growing together and exploring the world together. I recently spoke with one of our alumni from Pakistan who described for me the profound and transformative experience of rooming with one of our students from India who became her best friend. The power of a friendship like this, I would suggest to you all, extends far beyond the two people who share it. In her poem Uchetong, Mailbox, Kim Hee-soon writes, "What do I call someone like me?" She asks ruefully, "Should I attach a label, handle with care, and beg for my story to be delivered?" We can take this as a reminder to not only tell our own stories, but to invite the stories of others into our lives, to not only understand their sorrow, but their joy. Such an invitation is a daily obligation for peacemakers. Colleges and universities are preparing students not just for careers, but for active global citizenship. We are responsible for developing peacemakers, not only to work on a global scale, but to welcome others into their own backyards as good neighbors, trusted colleagues, and reliable friends. We are responsible for creating leaders who understand the power of compassion, of dialogue, and of understanding. We are responsible for catalyzing change in the direction of our own desire for a more peaceful world. I will leave you today with the words of the playwright Tennessee Williams, who thought deeply about peace and conflict, and who often combined a pessimism of the intellect with an optimism of the will. The world, he wrote, is violent and mercurial. It will have its way with you. We are saved only by love, love for each other, and the love that we pour into the art we feel compelled to share, being a parent, being a writer, being a painter, being a friend. We live in a perpetually burning building, and what we must save from it all the time is love. The work of peace requires love, which so powerfully and so frequently transcends our differences. Whenever it is given half a chance, and which in turn, in the form of nurturing, is essential to our resilience as a species. Things die when they go unnurtured, but nurtured they bloom repeatedly, sometimes in seemingly impossible climates and in the most unlikely places. Imagine a world where our colleges and universities built more intentionally the spaces where such flowering could occur. Imagine how the world's most pernicious conflicts might be peacefully resolved if tomorrow's leaders were developed in these spaces, where our differences are cause for celebration rather than suspicion, and where our common humanity is insisted upon daily. If our colleges and universities don't get to work building these spaces, who will? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your keynote speech.